Ladies, come on out to Rockledge Park at Lake Grapevine on July 16th from 9 to 11 a.m. You'll enjoy a delicious brunch, spiritual encouragement, and fun activities on the beach or in the water. The cost is $15 and parking is included. You need to sign up online by July 12th, and you can contact Abby David if you have any questions. Ladies, do you want to stay up to date on all of the events that are coming up? Opt in today for the Women's Texting app. Simply text CBF Women, all lowercase, to 97,000 to receive one text message every other week highlighting our activities. If you have any questions about this, please contact Robin Barnes. Our connection dinners are continuing through the summer, and everyone, yes, that's right, I said everyone is invited. Join us on June 25th, July 30th, or August 27th for a relaxed dinner with other CBF families. There is absolutely no commitment for coming, but we ask for you to RSVP at least 5 days in advance. Visit our website for more information or to RSVP, and you can direct any questions to Tammy Hogan. Good morning. We are so excited for you to join us for our online service here at Coppell Bible Fellowship. But we would love to see you in person at one of our services on Sunday morning at 9 and 10:45 a.m. Now let's go before the Lord in worship.
You're the same God today and the same God tomorrow. Help me see the victory that you already see. Let my faith be today what it will be tomorrow, when I've seen the victory that you already see. Jesus, I believe. Oh, we need a miracle. You are the miracle maker, God of the impossible. There is no power greater, exceeding abundant, beyond what we could ask or think. We call on your name, Jesus. Oh, we call on your name. By the power of your name, and all for your glory, the sick are healed, the soul is filled. Battle has been won. On your promise I stand, and in faith I believe it. That what I pray in your name, it's already done. Oh, let your will be done. Oh, we need a miracle. Maker, God of the impossible. There is no power greater, exceeding abundant, beyond what we could ask or think. We call on your name, Jesus. Oh, in the waiting, you get the glory. In the healing, you get the glory. And in the breaking, you get the glory. And in the breakthrough, you get the glory. That's our story, right? In the waiting, you get the glory. In the healing, you get the glory. And in the breaking, you get the glory. no power greater, exceeding abundant, beyond what we could ask or think. We call on your name. We need a miracle. You are the miracle maker, God of the impossible. There is no power greater, exceeding abundant, beyond what we could ask or think. We call on your name. We call on your name. We call on your name, Jesus.
Hey, good morning, y'all. Doesn't it feel great to be not in the heat and in the AC? Golly, it's going to be hotter today than yesterday. Lord, we need you. Okay, so one of my favorite musical artists of all time, let me just throw it out there, his name's John Mayer, the one and only. He wrote a song one time recently, relatively recently, called Say. And the last verse leading into the last singing of the chorus of this song says this: even if your hands are shaking and your faith is broken, even as your eyes are closing, say it with a heart wide open. Say what you need to say. Say what you need to say. And our Hebrews 11 character this morning personifies this song perfectly. He had a life full of ups and downs, and no doubt there were times his hands were shaking and his faith was definitely breaking. Yet on his deathbed, with his eyes closing one final time, he said what he needed to say. And what he said got him into the great hall of faith. And here is how the Hebrew writer sums up his words in Hebrews 11:22. By faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel, and he gave instructions concerning his bones. Now, this is interesting because he's in the hall of faith not for what he did. He's in the hall of faith for what he said. And there was a lot of great faith-filled, God-honoring moments throughout his life, but the Holy Spirit doesn't put him in Hebrews 11 on any of those moments, but he puts him in there based on what he said. And as Jesus says, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so the words that Joseph shares in Genesis 50 that the Hebrews writer here in Hebrews 11 is summing up, they are words that he spoke that were no doubt coming from a place that had a heart filled with hope. When I say hope, I don't mean the 2022 version of hope, meaning hope with a twinge of uncertainty. Like, man, I sure hope that works out for me. I sure hope for a better outcome. Or my favorite in the last decade, I sure hope the Cowboys make the playoffs. And then I hope they win a game if they do. No. The biblical version of hope has zero uncertainty in it. The biblical definition of hope is a confident expectation. Carries with it this idea of excitement and anticipation of something that you know for sure is going to happen. So growing up, for me, there was like a 7-8 year time frame where out of all the things I had going on in my whole life, and I have so many great memories, my favorite thing to do for like the 7-8 year time period was to go to my grandparents' house during the holidays. Because it wasn't just my family there. It was all the aunts and uncles and cousins, everyone, big family. My grandparents lived in Arkansas, and they had about 5 acres, and we would go fishing out their pond, or we'd play football in their field or softball with everyone. We'd come in, and we'd make sandwiches and play cards. We'd at nighttime, we'd have a movie going. We're talking, watching a movie. Then it's time to go to bed, and there's so many people in this little house that all the cousins got the floor in the living room, and we're just like this, shoulder to shoulder, not really sleeping good at all. But you know what? I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And my internal clock that I created for myself during that time frame was based around that moment. So I'd be like, oh, we are 2 months away. I can't wait. Or it would be the opposite where it's like, we have 10 months to go till that happens again. Oh, you're kidding me. I wanted it so bad, sometimes so much so, I would show up my house knowing that we'd have like a week or two before we left, and I'd be like, Mom, I'm packing my bags. And she's like, why? It's not for 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm trying to trick my mind just to let it know that like the trip is finally here. I knew it was coming, and it's finally here. And that's the biblical definition of hope. You hope for something that's going to happen, and you just can't wait for it. So let's take a look at the actual last recorded words of Joseph in Genesis 50 to see this hope, this confident expectation. Here's the account, Genesis 50, 24 through 26. Joseph says to his brethren, I am dying, but God will surely visit you, and he's going to bring you out of this land and take you to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph took an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you. He doubled down on it. He's like, he's coming. And you can carry my bones from here. So Joseph died being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. Now, you may have not seen or heard the word hope anywhere in there, but if you dig into it, what you realize what he's actually saying is that hope is the umbrella covering his final words. The first thing to note in this is that what he's saying to get their attention is death is at my doorstep. Wouldn't that make you listen in? Wouldn't that make you quit bickering with your family or the cousins on the holiday time and everyone's just messing around? If someone was to say, my granddad would to say, hey, I know my time's coming, I want to say something, we would have stopped what we were doing instantly. So he has their attention. Death is at his doorsteps, and the words he's about to share, they are vital, they are thoughtful, because he knows he doesn't have many breaths left to breathe. And so the first phrase he shares once he gets their attention is this: God will surely visit you, and he's going to bring you out of this land and take you to that land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Now, Joseph here, if you know what's going on, is he's bringing direct hope to their life, direct confident expectation of a truth that they all know. One day, they will need to be taken out of this land of Egypt and be taken to the promised land. Why? Because they know that there's going to be a day that the children of God are enslaved. This is a thing that they knew. It was passed down from generation to generation. Abraham, which is Joseph's great granddad, heard it first in Genesis 15. If you recall, God told Abraham, you need to know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land, and it is not theirs, and where they will be enslaved, and they'll be oppressed for 400 years. So he's on his deathbed. His family's around. The children of God know this information's been passed down from generation to generation. They know what the future is holding for them. They know slavery's coming. And so Joseph here, with their attention around him, says, hey, we know it's going to get bad. But you know what? God's going to show up. There will be an end to your pain. There will be an end to the slavery. There will be an end to the affliction. So hold true to the promise. He will take you out of this land. He will show up in your life, and he will put you in the promised land. In fact, he believes in that so much that he doubles down on this thought of future promises, because the next phrase, he gets them to give him an oath. And the oath is, hey, when God shows up, not if, but when he shows up, take my bones with you. I want to be in the promised land. It's obvious that Joseph strongly believed in these future promises of God. No doubt that's what Hebrews 11 is all about. These folks who believed in the future promises, the hope they had, the confident expectation that God will in fact pull out and do exactly what he says he's going to do. And so he believed in this. And this statement about his bones, I think he believed in the resurrection. I think that was passed down from generation to generation. And I think he said, hey, listen, when the resurrection happens, I don't want my bones in Egypt. I want them in the promised land. I want to be resurrected there. And we'll talk more about that in a second. So once again, Joseph is about to take his last breath. He doesn't have many left. He's imparting words of truth and hope to his family, his closest relatives, all around him. And he begins by saying, God will surely visit you. What a beautiful truth to know that God will visit. Why? Because God is real. God is active. God is in control. And Joseph knew this firsthand. throughout the ups and downs of his life, you see this taking place all throughout him. In fact, there's a phrase that you'll see, and in chapter 39 alone, you see it a few times, and the phrase is this: and the Lord was with Joseph. For instance, sold into slavery, the Lord was with Joseph. Working hard and making his master rich, the Lord was with Joseph. Falsely accused, the Lord was with Joseph. Unjustly imprisoned, the Lord was with Joseph. And then you see other phrases, and the Lord made him prosper, or and the Lord prospered Joseph in that house. Joseph knew that God had been with him in the good, but also in the bad. He wanted these words that he was speaking to his closest relatives to be passed down from generation to generation. To sum it up, this is what Joseph, I think, wanted his people to know, and this is good for us. In the story of life, God is the main player. Joseph was just a piece that he used. They don't call it history for a reason. It is his story. It's God's story. It's God's plan. It's God who created everything. It's God who sustains everything. It's God who's in control of everything, not Joseph, not you, not me. It's God. And Joseph realizes this truth, not just because God was with him in the good and the bad, but he knew that it was God who even made him prosper. Joseph has nothing to boast in. There is nothing that he did that it wasn't part of what God wanted. He has nothing to boast in, and he knew that. God was in control. And that doesn't mean that since God's in control, I just sit back and twiddle my thumbs and just say, well, do what you want. You can, but you'll be missing out on the opportunity to serve him. And Joseph said, I don't want to miss out on that. So even though he was in Egypt, he was saying, Lord, whatever you want to use, however you want to use me, I'm in. So he wanted his closest relatives to know this, that God will show up. He is real. He is with you in the ups and downs. He is prospering you. He is the main person in the story because it's his, not yours. But he wants to use you. And he'll show up at some point after 400 years of slavery, and he's going to take y'all from this horrible place, and he's going to place you in the promised land. Now, I believe that Joseph understood this truth about how great the promised land is more than anyone else alive at the time. And here's why. We're going to dig a little bit. Genesis 37, you first hear about Joseph. He comes into the story. Now, Genesis was written by Moses. Like any writer, there are themes that they'll carry through. And he has 50 chapters. That's a lot to go through, carry these themes through. Now, even in the Old Testament, you always see this idea of Egypt. Like Egypt over here in the promised land, they are polar opposites, pinned against each other. They're not the same. They're not compatible. They are opposites. So if we know that, and then we look at the themes of Moses, that starts in the very beginning. Be fruitful and multiply and take the land and their seed. And you have these themes of seed, you have these themes of land, and you have these themes of covenant. And through all the stories of Genesis, he's weaving these three things through these people. And now at the end of Genesis, we have Joseph. So let's look at some things with that mindset. Genesis 37, Joseph is living in the land of Canaan. Canaan is the promised land, though the people of God haven't inherited it yet. But he's living there. He's taken hold of it a little bit. He's seen it. He's been a part of it. And while he's there, he's also a favored son, close proximity with the father. He's given the coat of many colors that most of us, when we hear Joseph, are like, oh yeah, the coat song, the coat thing, I know that one. Not only that, he's a part of this promised family seed, the covenantal family of God. But because sin entered the world in Genesis 3, things aren't perfect and always aren't going to be the way they're supposed to be. So his brothers, even though they're a part of that as well, they get mad, they let sin enter their heart, and they decide to do something to their brother. They eventually sell him into slavery. Now he's in Egypt, not the promised land, okay? Now, Egypt and the promised land are polar opposites throughout the Bible. But he's in Egypt. We know the Lord's blessing him at different times in Egypt. The Lord's with him at all times. This is God's story, not Joseph's. So let's see what's going on. And over the course of these ups and downs in Egypt, he ends up finally getting time in front of Pharaoh, the most powerful man on the planet. And he gets in front of Pharaoh and he starts interpreting this dream for Pharaoh. And Pharaoh likes what he's hearing. And he notices some things about Joseph and how great Joseph is. Once again, not because Joseph's just great in and of himself, but because God decides to use Joseph. And he likes Joseph. And so he starts commending him. And we're going to read a few verses from chapter 41. And if you know the story of Joseph at all, I'm sure there are pieces of this that are going to jump off the page at you. And so I want you to hear what is written and what is said about, and now once again, from Moses is writing this in Genesis 41, from Pharaoh about Joseph, and see if it rings a bell. This is how it starts out. So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find such a one as this man, a man in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and as wise as you." Listen to this. "You shall be over my house." Come back to that. "You shall be over my house, and all your people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See that now I have set you over the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh takes the most powerful man in the world, takes off his ring, and he puts it on Joseph's hand. He clothed Joseph in garments of fine linen. He puts a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the second chariot, in which people would cry out to him, "Bow the knee." They're bowing to Joseph. Is this ringing a bell? So Pharaoh set him over all the land, and Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "Oh, by the way, Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no man may lift his hand or foot in the land of Egypt." And now Pharaoh gives him an Egyptian name. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphanath-Paneah, and he gave him as a wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. So Joseph went out all over the land. This is interesting to me of what is happening here in this passage, what he is experiencing. Because to me, and we're going to start deciphering this a little bit, I think what he's experiencing in Egypt is what he was supposed to experience and had been experiencing to a degree in Canaan. But instead of experiencing all of these things and the blessings of the Lord as a member of the covenant family in the future promised land, he's experiencing this in a pagan country. That's the opposite of the promised land. That's the land of Egypt. And look what happens next. Now, keep in mind, Moses is writing. It is a lengthy text. It is almost 14 chapters long. It's not a detailed every moment of his life text. Moses decides to interject things when he felt led by the Holy Spirit to interject things. So we just heard this great, look at Joseph. He is second in command in the most powerful place in the world. He has all these things. Look at what's going on in his life. And then Moses is like, okay, let's interject a story. It's an interesting place to interject a story. And in verse 49, Joseph is getting ready for the famine that will be here. He is preparing. He's smart. He is preparing. He's getting ready for it. Verse 49, Joseph gathered very much grain. Now listen to this. As the sand of the sea, until he stopped counting, for it was immeasurable. Where else in the story of Genesis have you heard the writer Moses mention this phrase about a number that is immeasurable and more than the sands on the seashore? It's all throughout the conversations and the promises and the covenant between God and Abraham and his offspring. That's when this is taking place. And I think Moses writes this, just interjects this story after all this pomp and circumstance of Joseph's life. He interjects this story because it's the moment at which I believe Joseph's eyes were opened. And they were opened, and Joseph needed them opened because of this. I believe, as great as Joseph was, he had gotten comfortable with the current culture, and he realized the ease of Egypt had taken him over. Let me explain. I can just see him going, I don't know if it's miles and miles of grain. I don't know if it's big storehouse. I don't know. But I can see him just going, wow, I'm counting. Well, there's so much out here. This is like, there's more of this than the sand on the sea. Sure. That reminds me. That reminds me of the promise and the covenant. And back home. And he looks down and he's wearing a different coat than the one he was put on in Genesis 37. He's got a ring from a different father. Gold chain. Maybe someone calls out his Egyptian name. And he's realizing he's in the wrong land. And he's going, wait a second. what has happened to me? Not saying the Lord didn't use him. He obviously did. Not saying he wasn't great. He obviously was. But I think he was getting comfortable. He's in the most powerful place on the planet. And Moses, the writer of all of Genesis, decides to interject this thing that, he's counting the grain, and it dawns on him that there's more of that than the sand on the seashore. And then look at what happens next. Joseph ends up having sons. Once again, stop the story, interject a new one. This is what Moses does. This is literally the rhythm of this story. And this is how it goes. The very next verse, verse 50. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, who Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. Now listen to their names. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all the toil of my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. First thing, let's talk about this. If Moses is just interjecting these stories, you just had a story of Joseph showing up on the scene. Pharaoh's like, dude, you're the man. And I don't know how long it took, but over the course of a little bit of time, or maybe at one moment, he gives him a new name. He clothed him. He's a chain. He's the ring, the land, your second in command, all these things. I'm going to give you an Egyptian wife. He is an Egyptian now. He has an Egyptian wife, but he has 2 sons. Why does he not give them Egyptian names? Why does he give them Promised Land covenantal family names? Something had to have happened. Joseph had to have a moment where he's going, whoa. I'm getting so comfortable with the culture, I didn't even realize I was losing it. Like I was becoming one of them. And if you look at the whole of Hebrews, it's about the future kingdom. If you look at Hebrews 11, it's about, hey, guess what? These people alive, yes, they're in Hebrews 11, but you know what? They saw their time here on earth as just passing through. This isn't their home. This isn't what they're about. They're looking for a kingdom, a better place, a heavenly place. And Joseph is realizing this. He got uncomfortable with the place he was at. So he instantly, Moses says, hey, he's counting and the sand of the seashore, it dawns on him. Now he cuts to 2 sons. But then the question is, why does Ephraim's name mean fruitful in the land of his affliction? Where would the land of his affliction be? My first thought would be like, it was where you were born, where the people ended up hating you and tried to kill you and then decided to throw you in a pit and then decided the best thing to do is just to sell you as a slave. Started this whole thing. That would probably be a land that I would say would be afflicted. But if that's the truth, why would he name his firstborn son, hey, all that stuff from the past I've let go of? Hey, all that stuff, all the toil, all the affliction with my family in the past, done. Doesn't even matter anymore. So maybe that's not the land of his affliction. So let's look at the other thing. Okay, well, where was he fruitful? He's fruitful in the land of his affliction. Where was he fruitful at? Well, the Bible shows us he's 17, Genesis 37, not really talking much about anything going on in his life. Nothing to say, he was bearing fruit of any sort, kids, livestock, anything. There was nothing that was happening there where he would have been considered fruitful. He's part of a fruitful family, but he himself wasn't fruitful. But we know throughout the text that when he makes it to Egypt, no doubt the Lord was with him and blessing him and making him fruitful. So the land of his affliction is Egypt, where he's living large, where life is good. It's the most powerful place, and he's second in command. Why would he consider the land of Egypt his affliction? It's awesome. Well, I think once again, Moses is trying to inform us that Joseph has realized he's just gotten real comfortable with that current culture. The ease of Egypt has taken over. Look at it in highlight view with me. Verse 40, he's over Pharaoh's house. That's the wrong house. Verse 41, he's over the land of Egypt. That's the wrong land. Verse 42, the signet ring, the robe, the gold chain, it's the wrong everything. Coming from the wrong father, wearing the wrong coat. Verse 43, people bow to him. Genesis 37, he has a dream. I'm going to go tell my family, y'all are bowing to me. Maybe he feels like Egypt and the way the devil works and the schemes. Hey, this is where the dream's taking place. They're bowing to you. The dream you had way back when, it's coming into fruition. Life is good for you. But verse 49, he's gathering all the grain. It's more than the sand of the sea. Verse 50, 51, and 52, he has kids. He names them with family names, not Egyptian names. Something happened. He realized he's at the wrong house, in the wrong land, with the wrong robe, with the wrong father, with the wrong name. That's what he's realized. And so Joseph, he should be in the future promised land, prospering there, but he's not. He's in Egypt. And the good news is, because it's not Joseph's story, it's God's story, he's still prospering in Egypt. Because God can do what he wants. It's his story, which is why Joseph tells his brothers 9 chapters later, hey, but as for you, what you meant evil against me, God meant for good. Because it's not my story, it's his story. Y'all thought it was about me getting hurt, but really God said, nope, you can move around all you want, you can do whatever you want. I'm in control. And so now, on his deathbed, with the attention of his family and the promises, future promises of God and the idea of slavery and 400 years and all these things they know, Joseph is trying to get them to understand how beautiful the promised land really is. Because in Genesis 50, life is perfect for the family. The children of Israel living in Egypt, they are finally unified. They are known and welcomed in the most powerful place in the world. They could easily slip back into the same thing Joseph realized at some point in his life that he was slipping into, that the comfortability of the culture, oh, you know what? Comfortability of the culture, that's where life really, that's where it's found. And he doesn't want them to live life that way. It's not the way life was created to be lived. And if they're not careful, they will go through what he went through. So even as life is absolutely great for them because they are living in this most perfect place on the planet, and where wealth is abundant, power, prestige, everything you need is there, Joseph wants them to know, as powerful and as wealthy and as great as Egypt is, it pales in comparison to the promised land, where God's kingdom will be, where you can be close to him, where you can go where he dwells. And anything that isn't that place, anything that's not the promised land, guess what it is? The land of affliction. So even for us, so we're in the great suburbs of the DFW metro, fastest growing metro in the nation, fastest growing towns in this metro, more money, more power, everything we need at our fingertips. In the great state of Texas, in the great nation of America, the surrounding world, it doesn't matter. Anywhere you are on this planet, you're in the world of affliction. And no doubt we feel it. We know there are times that are good. There are times where I can spend 7-8 years with my family and Christmas and Thanksgiving and memories that will last me till I have my dying breath. Moments with my kids that I just love and I wish they could last forever. And then there's times that aren't fun. There's things that we go through that aren't fun, that are bad and they hurt and they sting and it's not fair. And why is this happening? And we feel like we're slaves at times and we wish we could have freedom and wish we could have all these things. And it's just not the way life goes sometimes. But the good news is God's in control. He's the main player. This is his story. We get to play a piece in it. And the piece we get to play is understand that we are in the land of affliction, but we're not going to stay there. That we too have hope of a future kingdom, a confident expectation that it will happen. And guess what we get to do while we're here? Say, Lord, what part do you want me to play in this greater story? How many people can I tell that they're in the land of affliction and say, but one day you don't have to be? How many people can I bring out of this land at some point and help take you to the promised land? God, you can take something that is bad and turn it into something good. That's what you did in the life of Joseph. That's what you've done in the life of all the people since him. That's what you've done in my life multiple times. That's what you've done in y'all's life. We are in the land of affliction, but we're not staying here. And God can do what he wants to do and turn a good thing from a bad one. So let's not feel like Joseph at times where we just get so caught up in the culture and let it take over and let it become easy for us and let us think this is our real home. Let's look at those in Hebrews 11, like Joseph and others, and look to the future and say, hey, right now, it is just but a vapor. I'm here for a moment, and enjoy it and take it in and live large. Just go all out. This is what God wants for you, but know deep down, this ain't your real home. Be like those in Hebrews 11 who are nomads, who are aliens, who are just waiting for their chance to finally make it to the promised land. So you want hope today? You want real biblical hope? It's this. God's in control. He can make a good thing from a bad thing, and for all of us who believe in him for everlasting life, though right now we live in the land of affliction, he's going to take you and put you in the land of promise. And we'll finally be in the right land, in the right house, in the right body, wearing the right clothes, and in hopeful, close proximity to the rightful king. And we'll be there with him for everlasting. Be confident in that.
Caught up in your presence, I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you could do. I just want you. I'm sorry, but I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry, but I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. And I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I'm caught up in your presence, and I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessing. And Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for worship this morning. Again, we love to meet you in person and hope to see you next Sunday at 9 a.m. or 10:45.